択だと言ったよな。熱くなるなとも言ったぞ。
今やる。ガルボムの
ルームシャンブルズ
ヘッドホー。
We got some purple Luffy again here versus Oden. Now, this wouldn't be an all blue crew channel if we didn't have an Oden gameplay. We got a very consistent guy at locals, loves to play as Oden, and I love playing against him. It's such a fun deck to see. He's even got it graded. I think that's a graded sleeve. Anyways, purple Luffy, starter deck, post-starter deck actually. We've got all the new stuff in here. We got Luffy Taro, we got the Zoro Juros, we got the San Goros, we got the Uso Hachis, we got the Onamis. I think that's it. And we're just going to try to pop off here. Going first here, ended up winning the die roll and went first. My opponent's just going to play a bunch of searchers here, and then I'm just going to go ahead and ramp, and I find what I needed to find. That is that Luffy Taro. And since I'm going first against an aggro deck, I'm just going to slam down the Bond Clay instead of the Zoro Juro on this turn, because that Bond Clay will get me up to 5 Dawn, which will get me up to 7 on the next turn. I really don't want to take any extra life than I don't have to, especially in this matchup, just because Oden can get pretty aggressive. Oden being often a 6k leader on both turns, just because of the amount of 5 cost and above Land of Wano characters that he plays, and his leader ability kind of procs off that. Opponent's just going to go ahead and it's a Gum Gum Jet Pistol to take out my Bond Clay. A little bit of fear of Bond Clay potentially slapping that Momonosuke. Gonna go ahead and send a 5k lead, and gonna go back to my turn here. We are at our 7 Dawn turn. This is the turn to play out our nice little combo of this deck. We're gonna go ahead and send 5k at lead first. 5k is pretty free against Oden, or for Oden it's pretty free, because all of his non-counter cards have counter if they're Land of Wano type, so he's just gonna go ahead and use a non-counter as a 1k. As per the leader's ability, we're going to play out that Luffy Taro. Luffy Taro going to grab the best card that pairs with it, and that's that San Goro. Honestly, I undervalued this card so heavily. This card is so good, absolutely good. If your opponent plays a San Goro against you, you need to kill that thing ASAP. More often than not, it's going to swing one time, but if it swings more than once, you're doing something wrong here, because San Goro refills the hand. So on a pretty great curve here, opponent's going to go ahead and activate Momonosuke. Momonosuke is going to find a Izo. Izo is one of the best cards in the Oden deck, because number one, it's a 5 cost. We're going to lose a Dawn here. Quick intermission. And Izo allows them to... So actually first, Hiyori lets you play out something, draw a card. It costs 5 or less, Land of Wano. And then Izo's going to attach one Dawn. And then Izo also has an ability to let your opponent discard a card and turn it and give something minus 2,000 power. So really great against characters that can attack multiple times, leaders that can attack multiple times. I think it's for the... Is it for the battle or for the turn? I'd have to read that card. But we are at our 8 Dawn turn, which means that San Goro is going to start drawing me some cards here. We do have a Magellan. Funny enough, my opponent is about to go to 8 Dawn. And from my experience of playing against Oden, Oden runs Oden. Oden's an 8 cost. Like 8 cost 9k or something. Or sometimes Oden also runs Dragon. So I'm actually kind of incentivized to play this Magellan here to take my opponent off that even curve and send them to 7 Dawn. Potentially messing up some of their plays. We're going to play the Searcher event. Searcher event's just going to grab me a 0 cost event. I ended up skipping the Zoro Juro because I already had 2 in hand. 3's company. So likely what I'm going to do here is we're going to spread out some Dawn and play a Magellan. The Magellan's going to take my opponent off the curve. Going to set me back down to 7 Dawn, but I'm going to make sure I do this after I swing with the San Goro. So San Goro's leader effect happens. We're going to go and swing. We're going to draw a card, find a second 0 cost counter. That's going to allow those non-counter cards in my hands to stop being bricks. So I can pitch those if I need to. And then we're going to go and send an 8k lead. Opponent's just going to take that one while countering out of the 7k, because his leader currently is a 6k leader as per Oden's effect. Here I do have 1 additional Dawn I could use. We're going to instead send the 5k at Momonosuke, because Momonosuke is just going to keep finding my opponent cards, and we don't want him to do that. Instead, we're going to play out a Magellan. Magellan is going to -1 Dawn from each player, and I'm just going to hold up a Radical Beam as we pass on my opponent's turn. If you're new to the game, that's an absolute joke. Radical Beam is not a purple card. But I don't know, I say that joke a lot. But anyways, passing my opponent's turn. Opponent has an Izo on board. Kind of scary. The fact that it's a 7k beater. while also being a way for them to counter out of things. Opponent did elected to not use that ability last turn because didn't want to give up some cards in hand. Opponent only had 4 cards three cards at the time that Luffy Taro did attack. And because Luffy Taro is an 8k, if he minus 2k'd, it would have still required an additional card to get out of that attack. And with my opponent being at 4 life, no real reason to not just take it there. My plan next turn is probably play out a Zoro and try to find some action, maybe a Nami as a potential blocker here. As if my opponent takes me down to 2, I'm a little scared just because I know the Oden deck does run Kid and Killer. Kid and Killer, remember that card? Nope, I don't either. But that's a nice little card that preys on your opponent if they have 2 or less life, as it does get plus 2k on a 5k rushing body. Pretty scary. Especially if my hand is not going the way that I'm wanting it to go. Right now my hand's doing all right. It's a little decent. Got a few bricks in there, but opponent's gonna go and just swing at 9k here. And I'm very, very interested in potentially countering out of that. I don't want to drop to 2, but you know, I'm always an opposite of what I say. I'm gonna just go ahead and drop to 2 anyways. Opponent's gonna attach 1 Dawn and then swing a 7k at lead. We're gonna go ahead and give him a 0 cost event plus a Zoro Juro. Go into my turn here. Opponent's never going to be at 7 cards for that lull to take effect, but so likely that lull is just going to get pitched or played out as a blocker, but I will not be activating this effect. We do end up finding the Nami. Nami, absolute chef's kiss of a card in this deck. It is a blocker that also draws cards. Fantastic stuff. It's like your second set of queens. This deck also does run queen, because what purple deck wouldn't run queen currently? I'm at 9 Dawn here. Likely we're just going to save 4 aside for either a Zoro Juro play or a Nami play, but we want to keep pushing damage as well. I want to force him to have to try to kill this Magellan before he makes it to 10 Dawn. Instead, we're just going to go ahead and do the good old Luffy special. We're going to attach 4 Dawn to Luffy. We're seeing 12k into 7k here. The reason I swung so heavy is just because of Izo's ability giving minus 2k to a character by discarding a card, so it turns anything into a 2k. So I do need to swing quite a bit higher to force my opponent to use more cards from hand. Instead, just going to let Izo go. Pretty happy to see that happen. I'm going to swing 6k. Opponent's going to give me a 1k in the form of Oden's ability by pitching a non-counter card. Going to swing another 6k, and then we're going to tap 4 Dawn, and we're going to play out the Zoro Juro. Pretty much exactly what I said I'd do last turn. We're just going to play out the Zoro Juro. We're going to look for something fun. Likely just going to grab a 2k Sanji here, as that and Nami are the only 2 targets. We're going to have that 2k to hand. So that way we can feel a little safer because we are at the 2 Dawn turn. And funny enough, on that last turn where my opponent just kind of didn't really do much, he had mentioned that me playing Magellan there really took him off his curve. If that's spoiler potential foreshadowing into what happens later in this game here. So I was happy to see it. Happy to see that I was able to disrupt my opponent's plays. Opponent's going to play out a Yamato. This is a 5 cost 5,000 power. I think it's just activate main, attach a Dawn to a leader or character. So it's another way to kick off Oden's ability, since Oden does require 1 Dawn attached to get the plus 1000k power for the turn cycle. Going to play out a card that I was predicting, and that is a Kid and Killer. Kid and Killer is going to go ahead and swing. I am a 2 life or less leader, so it's going to end up being a 7k at life here. Looking at that 0 cost event, deciding what I might want to pitch with that 0 cost event. Instead, we're just going to give him a 2k and a 1k off the Sanji that we searched, as well as the Law here. Opponent's going to go ahead and swing another 7. I think we're just going to elect to take this one. Does give us a Kaido. Nice little finisher threat here if I wanted to potentially go for game and try to clear board here. Definitely first thing I'm going to do, we're going to kill that Kid and Killer. Kid and Killer only gets plus 2,000 on your opponent's turn when they attack. Down to 5k for the turn cycle on my side. So definitely going to commit some resources. Opponent's hand size is getting a little small, and if they're going to commit resources to protecting their board, they're going to have less for life later. So we're going to go ahead and slap 1 Dawn. We're going to go ahead and go 7k, requiring at least 2 cards from opponent's hand. Opponent's just going to let it go. We're going to use another Dawn to swing another 7k at my opponent, just because my opponent is a 6k leader right now. So my opponent can throw me a 2k with only 3 cards in hand. The likelihood is not very high. Instead, they give me 2 1ks here, going to 1 card in hand. Gonna swing an 8k, and then we're gonna play out a Nami, just to ensure that my opponent doesn't try to kill me. And Nami's gonna discard. I think we're just gonna pitch the Kaido here. We're gonna go in full on protection mode. Instead, we find another Kaido. The gods have graced us. So even next turn, if we wanted to, we could go for another Kaido. Then we're going to swing 9k. Opponent's just going to go down to 0 with only 3 cards in hand. I've got 5 cards in hand, 1 life, and a blocker. This game is pretty much sealed up at this point. If you want to click off the video, go for it now. I'm not judging you, but I am judging you if you're not subscribed. Currently, 88% of people that watch my videos and, you know, like One Piece, they're not subscribed. So hit that subscribe button. Obviously, if you're watching this long, we're 10 minutes into the video. If you're watching this long and you're not subscribed, you should subscribe. Join the crew. We're always looking for new deckhands. So definitely join the All Blue crew. And as my opponent thinks out the last turn of the game here, as it's looking like it's slipping away at this point. With me being at 1 life, it does kind of stop any potential rush Luffy plays, right? Because rush Luffy with Fudon attached basically makes them not be able to be blocked. But at this point, things are looking a little rough for good old Oden here. Gonna go ahead and send a 7k into lead here. And I think I'm gonna give him 2k and a 1k just to show him I mean business. And yeah, opponent's giving me a little chuckle here. Only 8 Dawn open, 3 cards in hand. Opponent's gonna slam down, or 4 cards in hand. Opponent's gonna slam down a dragon. This is the card that he was trying to play 2 turns ago, but couldn't because of Magellan. He's gonna attach 2 Dawn to his lead, swing 9k at leader. I'm just gonna go ahead and show him 8, show him 10. And then he's going to swing another 9k. And I'm just going to take that life there as my opponent has no more swings. He's out of Dawn. We're just going to go to my turn. And I don't even really need to do a full turn cycle here. We'll just untap the old Dawn. Draw a card. And then we're just going to swing. We'll just swing 18k. Right? Opponent has no blockers. I was over here like overthinking things. Whatever. 18k lead ends the game. Purple Luffy takes it over Oden. Purple Luffy with a great showing here with Luffy Taro on the 3rd turn into a Magellan to take my opponent off this curve. Chef's kiss of a curve. Anyways, if you like this type of content, I already told you to subscribe. I don't know, like the video or something. Thanks for watching, everybody.